Yeah, Argo. All right. Where are you? I'm taking it down to the garage. Let's vote. You're late, man. Vote's not in yet.
All right, we will go ahead and get started with everyone rise for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Calvert Town Council. Our first order of business is moving into approval of minutes from our last meeting for the Board of John? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. For anyone who's just joining us on the recording, we did do the pledge of allegiance and you just missed a motion of approving minutes. But we're right back into our regular meeting. Treasurer's warrant up next. We have a treasurer's warrant. I'll make the motion to sign the treasurer's warrant dated December 11th, 2024, and $1,030,050.51.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Working great as usual.
as we go through the field work process, there always are items that come up during the course of the work. We say, hey, can you pull this invoice? Can you, and she and her team were very responsive to getting us everything we needed. So thank you for that. We actually commenced the audit in late September, and then pulled together draft reports in late November, and then issued them final just earlier this month. So that was a good timeline to follow, and it's all done before the holidays, which is good. In terms of the results of the audit, the single most important thing that I would share with you is that the audit reflects a clean, unmodified opinion on the town's financial statements. That's exactly what any client would want. As you know, means that the financial statements are materially correct in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So that's pretty much as good as it gets in terms of an audit opinion. We, in the conduct of a financial audit like this, we're not auditing a publicly traded company, so we're not doing Sarbanes-Oxley type work. We're not auditing the internal controls and the systems of the town, but we are required to do some degree of consideration and examination of transactions that reflect how the systems and the procedures work over the course of the year. And if in the process of doing that, what we call control testing, we came across indications of deficiencies or weaknesses in the internal control structure, or either in terms of how it's designed, how it has been implemented, or just the overall operating effectiveness of that set of internal controls. If we noted anything like that that was particularly significant or material to the overall financial reporting system, we'd be required to report that to you in writing. So we're pleased to note that, and I think this has been consistent for a number of years, certainly. There were no such material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified during the course of the audit. That being said, I mean, nothing's ever perfect, right? And there's always opportunities for doing things a little bit differently or looking at opportunities for improvement. We did have, so those things we really view as like management points or advisory comments. We do have one advisory comment included in the 4-page letter that is in the very back of your packet, really speaking to an ongoing process that really any town would want to have in place anyway, which is always being mindful of what your existing policies and procedures are, and are there changes that need to be made. And I think of particular note right now, the town has a very well-crafted and detailed procurement and purchasing policy. The language in it really could stand some updating so that it's more in line with federal procurement standards. And Jen, I can get you an example of that and work with you as needed, but that would be something that would be worth doing. I understand that just recently the town has engaged a firm to come in and look at your personnel policies and some other items like that. So that would be a good segue perhaps to kind of do those types of things this year. It would be a timely process to undertake that, I think. But other than that, we really didn't have anything in terms of management or advisory comments to report on in writing. So if we go to the next slide in the PowerPoint, the rest of this presentation is really some very, very high level financial data that speaks to the town's financial condition and results of operations for the year ended June 30th of 2024. And one thing I would say right at the outset is that by any measure that you might want to look at, and there's several different measures that we do look at, or points of view that we look at the financial information from, but by any measure, the town had a successful year financially for 2024. by any measure, your equity or your net position, fund balance, those types of measures increased, which is good. You will see that you performed very strongly against budget in the general fund, so that's good. These are all things that are kind of benchmarks as to how what's the town's overall financial health and condition, and the bottom line is that you're in a very good position financially. As I've said, I know some of you folks have heard me say this, and then maybe some others are perhaps new to this particular presentation. So I'll just a quick reminder that when we're looking at governmental or municipal financial statements, we're really looking at financial information that is prepared in two entirely different ways. Your financial statements include first what are known as government-wide financial statements. And those financial statements are essentially prepared on the same basis of accounting, big picture, that General Motors or your car dealership down the road would use, where you recognize expenses and income based on when the underlying events take place, not simply based on when the cash actually comes in the door or goes out the door. So you recognize things like your fixed assets, your capital assets, your long-term debt as liabilities and so forth. In addition to the government-wide financial statements, municipalities also prepare and present what are known as fund financial statements, which are presented on a slightly different or more than slightly different basis of accounting called modified accrual. And basically, it's sort of a hybrid between cash basis accounting, where all you're looking at is the flow of cash in your checking account, and full accrual accounting, which is the government-wide. It's kind of a hybrid in between, but two very different ways of looking at your financial condition. So what I've done here on this particular slide is focus just on your government-wide financials in terms of your government-wide net position and the components of that. You'll see that your current assets, which are things like cash, taxes and accounts receivable, prepaid expenses, those types of things, grew by about $1.5 million. Your long-term capital assets, your property, plant and equipment and so forth, actually fell by about $100,000, primarily as a result of depreciation of those assets. Your current liabilities that are due to be paid out to other people within a short period of time, typically 1 year from the balance sheet date, those grew by about $100,000. And then your long-term liabilities, your promissory debt, your capital leases and things of that nature, fell by about $500,000. We always want to look at what the bottom line is in terms of net position or fund balance, essentially your assets less your liabilities. And at the government-wide level, we focus on two different measures or two different components of net position. There's total net position, which is your total assets less your total liabilities, and that grew by $1.7 million. So a very strong result there. And then your unrestricted net position, which is the portion of your total net position that isn't subject to any sort of external limitations or restrictions on how those resources are expended, that also grew by about $400,000. So from those perspectives, it was certainly a strong year. If we can flip, we have flipped to the next page, that's great. Here we're looking at the town's general fund. And as you know, the general fund is where the lion's share of any municipality's activities are going to be run through the general fund. That's where your budget typically is focused. That's where your property tax revenue goes and so forth. You'll see that total assets in the general fund grew by about $1 million. Total liabilities also went up by about $300,000. And what that means is the total fund balance grew by about $700,000. Now, just like we did on government-wide side, at the general fund level, we look at total fund balance and carve it out into different buckets and different components. And the portion of your total general fund balance that people are typically most focused on is your undesignated or unassigned fund balance. Because that's a portion of your total general fund balance that again is totally unrestricted or unlimited by any external or internal restrictions or limitations. And even though your total general fund balance went up by $700,000, the undesignated portion of that actually fell by about 1.3, I'm sorry, by about $1 million. And that is really the result of the vote that was taken in November of this year, in which $1.3 million was assigned or appropriated by the townspeople for the town hall renovation project. So by any measure, that's still a very strong level of undesignated fund balance. It's within your fund balance policy. It represents about 4 months worth of general fund expenditures. So,
I just have a question. Quick question
Sure.
on that. So I totally get that we deducted the 1.3 million for the town hall renovation, but I'm confused about timing, because that is a vote that happened after this fiscal year ended. So like, how does that work?
that's an excellent question, something that Jen and I talked about. So the vote took place after June 30th,
Yeah,
but before the audit report was issued.
okay.
If we'd already issued the audit report, you would just view it, because it's what's considered a subsequent event. And the idea is that by the time we're issuing the financials, if we're aware of circumstances that have taken place since year end that bear on that financial information,
Right.
we try and incorporate that. So that's why we, if things had been different time-wise, you wouldn't see it until next year, so. So now if we can go to the next slide, which is, excuse me, other governmental funds. And these are all of the other funds that are included within the town's financial activities, your TIF fund, your FEMA fund, other special revenue capital projects and reserves funds. And what I've done here is just kind of call together the key financial aggregates for all of those other funds as a total or as a whole. And you'll see that your total assets in these other governmental funds grew by about $1.2 million. Your total liabilities grew by about almost $500,000. And the result of that is that the total fund balances in these other governmental funds grew by a net of $700,000. And most of that growth, as an aside, was within the TIF funds, particularly with respect to the transit TIF, which is new this year, or new in terms of having funding. Okay, so now we can go to the last slide. And here we're looking at the general fund budget. And all I've done here is really compared at a very, very high level, your total budgeted revenues and expenditures, your total actual revenues and expenditures, and then for reference, comparing those to the prior year actuals. And what you'll see is that both with respect to revenues and also with respect to expenditures, your general fund outperformed the budget. Revenues came in higher than budget, expenditures came in below budget. And so that was really almost a $1.5 million favorable swing, because at the end of the day, we generated a surplus within the general fund of about $640,000. But the plan or the budget was to actually have to utilize $850,000 or essentially run a deficit within the general fund. So that's a huge swing, favorable, and certainly a good result.
We've had that for a couple of years now. It's a situation. Yes, where we plan to have to use more money and then we end up.
Well, I was going to say the town, I think, has historically, erred on the side of caution in terms of budgeting, yet at the same time really exercises really careful cost and expense control as you go through the course of the year. And so what that typically does is, I think that is a typical result. It's a function of how you budget and also a function of how you manage. But here's the thing, you could have someone pose a question, well, because I live in South Portland and there are people who are regularly questioning the size of our fund balance, citizens, and think about the town hall renovation project. You were able to fund almost $1.5 million of that simply by taking it out of what was unassigned fund balance, which is, and you had that money, you had those resources available because you've been performing like this over a number of years, and that's exactly why, making sure that you are setting aside a good level of fund balance for future years and unexpected circumstances, COVID, whatever. That's exactly where you see the benefit of that. So, any questions from me?
The only way they're gonna be able to do it because we have great staff and great performance, so.
I feel like it's boring, but I guess it's better to be boring and good than exciting and not good.
We would welcome boring over exciting.
Right, exactly.
Any questions? Tim? Yeah.
On a question, Madam Chair, I'd just like to thank Peter for all his hard work on this. I know he puts in diligently lots of hours and answers a lot of my stupid questions. So I do certainly appreciate your help with that. And I want to thank Jen for preparing the budget and just, let the council know that we work diligently all year long to monitor what we're spending, how we're budgeting, future forecasting, so that we can always hopefully plan to have a good nest egg as well as to have good operating budgets with, revenues that show we're getting stuff done, accomplishing our goals, and not wasting taxpayer money.
Right.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jen, for your hard work on that.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you so much, Peter. Happy holidays.
Oh, happy holidays to everybody, and I'll let you get on with the rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Jen, and for all of your hard work on that. Thank you. All right, that wraps up our annual audit presentation. Up next, we have DeCarlo and Paul joining us to talk about the Brownfield project on Railroad Avenue. Take it away.
Yeah, we're gonna tag team on this.
Great.
Everybody, again, I'm Paul Schumacher, and I'm a special project planner here in town. I've been working with DeCarlo on a few things. So we want to talk about 9 Railroad Ave. We're gonna be throwing around the term brownfields now and probably into the future, I think. And I just want to give you a quick, the EPA official designation or definition of what a brownfields is, because it can provide some clarity maybe. So a brownfield is a property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. So a brownfield site, you could just be driving down the street and looking at a piece of property, and maybe it's an old gas station, maybe it's a laundromat. That could be a brownfield site. It doesn't necessarily mean it is contaminated, although as we'll describe, I think we may have an official one here. So DeCarlo had put together some questions and we'd like to work through those. Yeah, you can switch. Thanks. Where's the property? How did the town come to acquire the property? What is currently occurring on the property and why? And what are the next steps for the staff? And also, most importantly for you folks, what are the next steps for the council? Next slide, Diane. So the site is off of Railroad Ave. You can see it outlined there fairly clearly. It's across the street from Gagnon's fuel storage depot, I guess we would call it. It's near the town garage, which is kitty cornered over to the right. There's a railroad grade there. It's very near the Berwick town line, and it's you can see the water district office is down below it to the south. So you can get a good idea. The Shoetown and the Shoetown Mill, you can see there farther down on the bottom of the picture. So that's where the site is. Next slide. It's 1.6 acres. It's within the downtown. It's bordered by Driscoll Brook, which I think runs to the north of it. There's a decommissioned railroad spur, owned by the owner? Yeah. And then there's various businesses. Robert Shine is down there. I think he directly abuts the site. It was a prior factory site, and there was a fire there. It was a chemical factory. I don't know if anybody in town remembers it. I certainly don't. We don't really know when that fire was or what occurred, but that's probably why we're standing here today. It's a B1 zone, and it does have, DeCarlo had outlined the zoning on it. It's a shoreland area, shoreland and slope overlay. So just to bring you up to date. So the town acquired it by tax foreclosure in 2019. A phase one environmental assessment was conducted prior to the town purchase. Now, a phase one environmental assessment in the EPA world is not it's basically a paper analysis of what occurred on the site. They don't go out, they don't dig holes, they don't do test pits, they do some historical research, they look at old aerials, they review old historical maps. There's a certain subset of those that are very important that they use. And then they create a report and they talk to Maine DEP and other folks. So that was done prior to 2019 by a private party who was interested in buying the parcel. This summer, when I first got here, Jen had said somebody had some interest in buying the parcel. And I think we had basically said, well, we don't want to sell you what may be a contaminated piece of property. So that was sort of kicked off the thought process of this whole situation. Where we're at, we've been talking about this. As you know, I came from SMPDC. This is a very good fit for their brownfields program. And the purpose of the brownfields program, and I'll describe it in a little more detail, is to not only clean up a site, but put it back to reuse the site. It's not only an environmental cleanup program, it is a reuse and economic development program. There's projects all over the region. The Southborough Library, SMPDC funded that many years ago to get the asbestos and I think lead paint out of there in the beginning of the project, and that sort of kickstarted that library project. The town of Berwick, obviously, prime tanning, that's a huge brownfields project being done by EPA, and now it's under private control and private developer. So what we would like to say is that it's easy to look at a contaminated piece of property and like, oh my God, but what we like to say, it's not a problem, it's really an opportunity for the town. And why it's an opportunity for the town is because of the money that SMPDC gets from EPA. And I'm not, just sort of patting them on the back or even me from when I was there, but it is the most successful program in New England as far as brownfields redevelopment goes. They've received and distributed over $20 million in the last 15 to 20 years for assessment and cleanup. So they have different pots of money. Where we are right now, and I'll talk about it and then I can hand it over to DeCarlo, but they have environmental assessment funding, which is to go out and actually do more assessment, site investigation, bring out backhoes, dig test pits and that sort of stuff. They recently received $500K from EPA to fund that program. They have reuse planning funds, which is important, I think. And, DeCarlo can talk about that, which in some cases, which we can apply to them to use. And the most important part, of course, is that they have the cleanup funding to, once we figure out what's going on with the site, what the level of contamination is, and what we want to do with the site potentially, that funding can be used to potentially clean up the site. It would be a grant. You need to apply to SMPDC for that. It would be a grant if the town or a nonprofit retains ownership and wants to do the cleanup. The foreclosure side of it is something DeCarlo is going to talk about. This whole foreclosure thing that you guys were talking about with the reps.
Is applicable for this.
Yes, very much applicable. And it didn't used to be. So, As we move along, you'll see that the cleanup and the future use and the ownership and related to the foreclosure are very much all interrelated. The foreclosure thing actually, I think, made this a little, it didn't used to be this complicated, actually, as far as an end goal. So, the current efforts, first of all, it's not, SMPDC does not provide a grant to the town. It's just, they're working on behalf of the town. So, okay. The site is eligible. It's been approved as an eligible site by EPA, and we've been approved for assessment funding by SMPDC. They've already got a cost estimate on what it would cost to go out there, hopefully relatively soon, hopefully in the winter, to do it. I think it was in the range of $35,000. We went out to Carlo and I with the SMPDC team, and they have their own set of environmental engineers who will be part of this the entire way at there's no cost to the town, which I want to reiterate a lot, that there is no cost to the town at this point, and probably even into the future. I mean, these are all grants through SMPDC. So we went out, and then you can see there was, you know, I mean, I'm not a genius, but I mean, it looks like a contaminated site to me. I mean, there's barrels halfway sticking out of the ground. Okay, it's an oil drum. So again, I'm not an environmental engineer, but I think that's, so based on the prior phase one assessment, that site visit, I think we're thinking that there's probably some contamination out there. So the site, the phase two site assessment is planned for this winter. It's going to be conducted by TRC. Hopefully they will be able to get out there maybe in February, depending on the weather, and we'll see. The one thing I just do want to make clear, other than the fact that right now, you know, there are no costs to the town here as we move along. You know, SMPDC handles all the administration and the contracting and the reporting to EPA. That's all taken care of. There's very little staff time involved with that, other than major decisions that will need to be made by you or us. So to put specific timelines on this, because there's contractors, they got to do testing, they need to get the results back, they need to do reports to EPA and DEP. Those can take time. There's certain statutory deadlines within those. So, you know, to sit here and say, you know, in 6 months, we'll know exactly where we're at. It's very hard, but I think within the next few months, we will get them out there and they'll do their site investigation. And I'll also just point out that the environmental folks, the engineering company, TRC, is more than happy to come to a meeting and do a presentation, and you can hear directly from them about what's going on. So now I'll, let me just,
Yep, okay, yeah, sure. I can, next slide, please. Thank you. So hi, thank you all for having us. I'm DeCarlo Brown, your Director of Planning and Economic Development. And just to reorient everyone here, we've acquired a property due tax flow. The site could be contaminated. We're doing, we have been a grant of service by SMPDC to figure out if it's contaminated, how it's contaminated, what are costs associated with cleaning up the site. Now, that's where we are. We've acquired the property. The next steps are basically, we need to wait until the phase two is done, because that'll tell us exactly what's going on the site. And then we would need to make some decisions on future use and ownership of the site. And that's important because of how the site was acquired through tax foreclosure. It's also important because that's tied into how the site can be cleaned up. This decision will come right after the phase two. And then, you know, really we're going to be assisting in the remediation efforts. So whether we retain ownership of the site or it goes to another party, we'll be helping them to basically clean up the site.
Can I ask, or can I just make a statement to make
Sure.
sure that I'm following?
Yeah.
So the phase one assessment has been done. That's very, very high level.
Yep.
The phase two assessment is what SMPDC is kind of helping us to
Yes.
execute.
Correct.
Post phase two is when we have to start making decisions.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. This next slide is basically, this is just for information purposes only, not for you to make any decision tonight or even, you know, really close in the future, but to keep in mind, about this site in particular. Basically, you have two options. You can either sell the property or you can retain the property. And that will have implications on how the site is used and how it's cleaned up. If you sell the property, the person who buys the property can apply for a remediation loan or a grant if they're a nonprofit doing for affordable housing. If we retain the property, we can apply for a grant to remediate the property. So if we sell the property, the proceeds of the sales minus the costs incurred are returned to the prior owner. Basically that's the law today. If we retain the property, we need to determine if any excess sale proceeds exist using the appraised value. So we get an official appraisal, and if the value of the property is $400,000 or what have you, or maybe $10, and we acquire the property for $9, we need to give that dollar back to the prior owner. And it's a timeline associated with that, based on when you get the appraisal. You get the appraisal, 120 days later, we need to give the money back. Assurances on when it's to be built, we'd have to think about that differently, whether if you're gonna sell it or you retain it. Obviously, if you retain it, you have a lot more control over what goes on in the property and what ultimately may be built. Be it is we build it ourselves or we lease it, like the mills it's on our land, but we've leased those out. So that's a possibility. But if we sell the property, basically we'd have to do some deed restrictions or easements or alter zoning to ensure that property is built the way we would kind of like it to be built and matches what we're trying to do downtown. The benefits on both sides. Basically, if we sell the property, it returns to tax rolls basically immediately. If we retain it, we using it as an asset. It's an asset for us. We develop it as an asset. It becomes an asset for the people who live here. And that's would be the point. Now there may be cons for both sides, depending on the outside financing for anything to be built. If you sell it, we don't have any control over it. You've sold it. It's not in your control anymore. It's possible that the site remains contaminated and unused. If you sell the property, you don't have any control about the owner is going to clean it up or anything like that. And then finally, if you sell it, there's no flexibility on how the site is to be sold. The law is very clear. You guys already heard about that tonight. It's very clear how you have to sell the property. On the cons on retaining it, it may require developer familiarity with public-private partnerships. So we would be looking for a partner that does similar things that such as the Mills does, but we have the benefit of this area. A bunch of those organizations are around and they do have some experience with that. It may require some capital to realize, as far as, we're looking for, grants or anything to do depending on what the use is. And may require zoning updates for downtown changes that come sooner. So we are already on a timeline to do changes as far as zoning concerned for the downtown revitalization. If we're retaining the property, we might want to move that timeline up to make sure that anything that you want to be built as an asset fits into that, and we're not putting the cart before the horse. And so basically, that's basically it. The next one is the reason why we're doing this. This is a huge list of things from our current comprehensive plan that you just passed that talks directly about us doing this type of work and using assets that we're finding around the town that we have to better promote. And so I'm gonna read 3 of them. I'm not reading this whole list because just being cognizant of your time. So consider implementing a provision in the subdivision ordinance that requires a percentage of all new residential dwellings within the subdivision or 10 or more units to be affordable to low and moderate income families. So you can think about that, about the site for so basically affordable housing. Pursue funding for downtown beautification, including landscaping, facade improvements, or public art. This is in the spot that is downtown, is near our border, but also could, with some other work, be used to connect portions of our downtown that currently aren't connected. Also increase promotion of economic development potential of South Berwick through town messaging, website collaboration, and listing specific priority sites. So again, this is an opportunity that this can be, basically, this is a pilot of, hey, this is how we can work with our community to build an asset, and people can see that value that we're doing. A lot of the things that we do in zoning and planning is a bunch of paperwork, and it's hard to really understand how that makes an impact today, because we usually have to wait for 10 or 20 years down the line. When you have a project like this is very visual. Same thing with the town hall, it's very visual, that if you make changes, then people can see you making those changes. And so that's a difference between that. I've included a bunch of other things in this list, if you're looking for ideas. But with that, we'll end this, because this was just supposed to be informational for you.
Great, I appreciate the heads up on this project, so that when we are faced with decisions, we have some context and.
Just one final comment, and I think Tim wanted, from today, wanted me to mention this. So the ultimate result is to get the project cleaned up. And SMPDC, they just received a $3 million grant for cleanup funding from EPA. So it's very hard to say, yes, right now in this point in time, that there's going to be that money available for the cleanup. We don't know what it's going to cost.
Mhm.
But the record, there's a very good record of towns going to SMPDC for municipal projects and getting funding. So the critical point, though, is to have a plan in place of why you want it, and show some type of public benefit or whatever the case may be.
So until phase 2 is completed, we have no idea, one, if it's contaminated, or two, what contaminants we're dealing with.
Correct.
Okay, just in case anybody asks.
Yeah. And I do think it's sort of like a go slow approach. I mean, I think everybody wants to get to the end, like now, but we don't really know what's out there. So.
I just want to make that, because we
Yeah.
had sites in town before that we still deal with today. So just in case anybody asks, I want to be able to say we don't know, and that's why you guys are bringing us into this, so we can find out, get it remediated, or if it's not, it's good to go.
Right.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I appreciate all of this.
Anyone have any questions, comments? Yeah.
So along sort of like what John was saying, if, let's say, phase 2 comes in and it is, whatever, it's contaminated. From the looks of it, it looks like that back corner is basically the piece that hits Driscoll Brook, but if I recall correctly, it's kind of hilly back there. So if it is oil-ridden soil, spending centuries draining into Driscoll Brook, which then drains down towards Fogarty's and whatnot, hitting all those other properties. What are the implications if phase 2 says this is contaminated? What is our next step? Maybe you don't know, maybe you do. But for like what John was mentioning, do we then have to say abutters to Driscoll Brook, we now need to? Do we have more brownfield properties? How does that work?
That's a good question. First of all, you would need to do further assessment, which, and I can't figure out, I don't know whether it would have gone in. I mean, the phase 2 that they have recommended does not include right now any groundwater sampling. They may be able to, or they would, if they're sensing that there's a potential groundwater issue, they would add that to their assessment, to whatever they're doing. They're not going to just say, oh, this looks terrible, see you later. The money is there for them to continue the assessment, and EPA would not allow, we need to figure out what's going on. So now regarding the brook and what the impacts are, that one, I think I'm not, we'll have to see.
I have town water because of that, Jeff.
Yeah.
But it sounds like very much we take one step at a time, when we
Yes.
learn from this step, and then we just kind of react accordingly and
Yes.
the information we.
And again, I just want to emphasize that TRC is more than they've already said, that they're more than happy to come to a present. And once they do the phase two, I think, you know, they'll.
Yeah, I think we should have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just
Whatever they
appreciate
have.
that you're all jumping on this.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
And finding and utilizing these programs and funds that are available to us to do things like this. I think you guys have both brought us that insight to that work so that we can use funds that we didn't necessarily know or have access to otherwise, so.
And if I could add, I appreciate it too, as that phase two comes through, if we can make it a point to make sure that my concern that I just brought up is clearly addressed, so that we can then say to the residents after, that we're not just trying to move forward with beautifying the town on this triangle of land. We cared about who's here. I'd like to close that door before we end up looking at what the next things are, because that's, in my mind, the first step after identifying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
So to kind of bounce off, what Councilman Manahan's talked about, you know, some of the discussions we've had in staff meetings talking about this project is we discovered this was our discovery. And then once we discovered it, Paul started to look into it with Carl, then they discovered the potential of a hazardous site. The good news for that, and kind of answer to your question. So all the homes around there at some point in the last 10 or 15 years have probably sold, most of them, and have not gotten any kind of reports of contamination. There hasn't been any outward signs, people haven't been screaming up and down Railroad Avenue, my stuff is, you know, I got brown water and my stuff's contaminated. So there hasn't been any outward signs in the neighborhood area, which is a positive impact to us in the idea that it may be very much contained, however it is, into that soil, right, whatever's there. So that's a positive on your, kind of, to your question, Guthrie, that we haven't seen anything that indicates it's left the site. So the primary purpose is just to take the land, get it cleaned back up, and get it fixed back for us to decide what to do with it. As well as the other part is, once we determined that a potential hazardous site existed, I felt very strongly, along with DeKalb and Paul and Jen, we had an onus to the taxpayers of the community, as well as the council and the citizens, to move forward to get this remediated and taken care of. I don't know if they knew about it 10 years ago, don't know if they knew about it 5 years ago. But once we determined we knew about it, we took the corrective actions to start the process. So I want to thank Carlo and Paul for working on this, and Jen and myself. You know, we're committed to, again, making the town a better place, so it's a step forward.
Thank you both. Yeah,
one-
sorry, Bill.
Sorry, just one clarification, and I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is, but when it comes to the grant, the assessments and green it all up, those are totally funded.
There is no match,
Okay,
which is,
awesome.
there used to be. But this is new federal money, you know, the ARPA money and stuff, so.
Okay,
they
thank you.
took- Yeah,
And everything we talked about for tonight, the town does not have to pay for, correct?
Correct.
Right. Thank you both. Happy holidays. Okay, up next, we have Tim Smith. Haven't seen you in a while, Tim, thanks for coming. He's gonna give us a presentation on an update on the Salmon Falls Tidal Water Project that we contributed.
Yes, thanks. It's good to be back. My name is Tim Smith. I'm a volunteer with the Great Works Regional Land Trust. I'm the project manager for the Salmon Falls Tidal Waters Project. And I was last year, I think in early May. A lot has happened in the project. Just a quick recap of it. Back in 2000, a landowner down on Old Fields Road came to the land trust with plans to proceed with developing her property. And she just wanted to know if any conservation values were present. And we walked the property, and of course, we went along the river, like a quarter mile of frontage on the river with salt marshes, and we thought there were, so we had continued the discussions. And then then we asked her if she would sell the property entirely for conservation, and she agreed. And so that's what kind of started the project. In 2022, we were talking to the neighbor, and he stepped forward and said he would sell his property. Chris and Rosalind Magnuson, that was another 12 acres on top of that. So the project started out at about 73 acres of uplands, and about another 16 or 17 acres of marsh along the road. And we've been fundraising for that ever since. We successfully completed the fundraising we wanted. We raised a little bit about $2.5 million of that, which $200,000 was contributed by the town. And that, of course, was a key part of that funding puzzle because it showed a local commitment, which got a lot of other funders interested. The biggest contributors were the landowners. They donated 1.1, a little bit over $1.1 million of land value to the project. And the Great Works Regional Land Trust and Jordan Kelly behind me helped raise another $500,000 from private funds, from private individuals and foundations. And this year we got and closed on the properties this year. It turned out the Magnusons donated their property when it came time to extend the purchase and sales agreement into this year. They just said, well, we'll just donate it, which was very nice. It turned out to be $440,000 worth of value. So they donated their property, and then we ended up closing on the 2 Sarah Cullen parcels in September. So as of now, we have, all the parcels are owned by the Great Works Regional Land Trust. We've raised the money we think we need to go forward. We paid for the property. And now we're coming up with a site plan for the site. Of course, a number of people are involved in this process, not only from the community, from the land trust, but also from the funding agencies. So we're trying to balance all that. What I'm here tonight is about sort of having a concept plan. These are elements, I have 3 slides. They're the elements of a poster that was developed by Braidwork, the consultant we hired to help us out on this. And this is sort of with the major ideas is the project description of the project. We kind of came around to maybe do something to balance Vaughan Woods, which is just up the road from us. It's a different type of site, but open to the public, but maybe a little bit different, maybe a little bit more wildlife centered, observationalist centered type of environment. A little bit low key that protects the wildlife and protects the water quality of Salmon Falls River. That's how it's developing out. The Salmon Falls Tidal Waters is not the final name of the project. I just want to mention that quickly. That was just a funding name for actually aimed at the federal government bureaus. It might be the name, but it's not that name has not been agreed upon. Let's see, some of this, and I think, again, this is sort of be a pedestrian and a wildlife centered project. If you go to the next slide, Diane, that was just, it's a little bit slow to see it, but this is you have this in front of you. This is sort of the site elements we have. We have a parking area on the short, we have about 200 feet of frontage on Old Fields Road. We're gonna put a parking lot in there, of course. The exact position of the parking lot is not known yet. There's some might be some soil issues. There's a dug old farm pond right on the road, and that has to have some sort of drainage. But the parking area is gonna be right there. We're looking at about probably 8 or 9 parking lot. I think we're gonna have a bicycle rack. It's supposed to be encourage pedestrians to come down or people to bike to it. And then we're going to have a series of trails, not a lot of trails, but a series of trails in there outlined in the pink and the yellow. This is not the exact placement of the trails. This is sort of representational. When we get out there and do the lay of the land and look out, we're going to have 2 overlooks over the Salmon Falls River, one at the sort of the southwest corner at the Cullen lookout, and then one at the sort of the northwest corner, the Magnuson lookout. And again, that's in a concept. We're also maybe thinking there's been some interest in the bird blind down a little bit just above the marsh and get over the expense, because this is about 17 acres of marsh and mud flats. And several people who are birders have said, oh, this would be a good place to do their hobby and to have some, count birds is what they do and look at them. We're also thinking of a little bit that has the potential for some educational programs and use. There are 6 schools within 4 miles of this site. So we kind of put the Braidwork came up with having like a gathering area, is this sort of right that's at the conjunction of a number of paths, which would be sort of like a gathering circle, where people could sit and, talk maybe a little bit before they went out on the trails. So that's how it's sort of coming out. We have 2 types of trails. One is just going to be a rustic trail, like you would think of a normal hiking trail, sort of in the outline in yellow. And we're also hoping to, put in what we call a universal access trail, which is a bit of, a little bit more for people who have mobility issues, a little bit more of a, no roots, get out the roots, try to get out the rocks, make it a little bit more level. So people with mobility issues would have a good time to be able to walk out to the common overlook and have a good, maybe half-mile walk out of it. So that's sort of the concept of it. And the next slide, I just have a few pictures of how that might look in your book. The top picture there is where sort of the outlook from the bird line and how that might look. The bottom, the middle two there is the meadow, which is going to be managed as meadow habitat, which will be mowed maybe once a year, perhaps after the fall, really late in the fall. We have one giant white oak, which is sort of a signature tree on the property. It's probably, nobody knows exactly how old, but it's probably been there a couple hundred years. It's been there much farther longer than any of the other trees have been there. It's never been cut. This was used by the former owner as a tree farm, and she did several harvests, including the last one in 2020. And the bottom pictures are of the lookouts are taken from Rachel Carson Wildlife Refuge over in Wells. And this is sort of at least what we're preliminarily having a vision of how those outlooks might look like, and some of the signage and a kiosk. Again, a little bit low key, not a lot of signage. Again, the trails, there's some sensitive habitats and some vernal pools, and we've sort of had the trails to avoid those. It's been suggested, one of the things is that in a contrast to Vaughan Woods, that maybe will not allow dogs, it'll be more of a pedestrian orientated place to do that. So we allow dogs on almost all our other properties, and I know there's a lot of dog use at Vaughan Woods, so we said maybe this is something different that could be here. Any sort of questions? We have talked to the Conservation Commission. DeCarlo Brown also hosted us for a short meeting with Jen McCabe, so we went over a little bit about what we need to go through for the planning process and going on to a site review process for the plans. We're hoping to kind of start, putting together the actual plans. Hiring out the engineering for the parking lot this winter, getting maybe the trails designed and flagged this spring, with construction happening this summer and into the fall.
I have an idea, and I'm looking to Tim again, because I don't know if this is possible, but if we weren't aware, the town of Thornton has essentially adopted the USS Washington, the crew of the USS Washington, and I don't know if this is an opportunity. I was trying to get a feel for you of timeline of when, boots on the ground work would start happening, and if that coincided with anything with USS Washington, I don't know, it just might be an option. We essentially adopt the crew, for, how long?
2 years.
2 years.
Okay, yeah.
And it's our goal to kind of immerse them in our community and get them involved in various things, and, I don't know, trail construction could be.
Yeah, certainly that, we actually have talked about that. Someone else has mentioned that also. And the fact that they're here for 2 years, makes it possible.
Okay, great. I appreciate the update. Thank you, Tim. Anyone have any questions or comments or anything for Tim? Yeah, go ahead.
It's nice, seeing this stuff, and there was a lot of conversation, as you know, and I appreciate you coming in and, with some pictures to actually see and envision what it's gonna turn out, or potentially turn out, so thank you very much. It's
All right.
exciting.
I actually saw a write-up about it in the Downey Maine magazine too, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Oh, cool. Yeah, very cool.
Oh, I have not.
Thank you, Lauren.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. That takes care of all of our reports and presentations. Public comments. Does anyone here in the room want to speak on anything not on the agenda? Pat or Brett? Anyone on the phone? Okay, we'll move on. Unfinished business number 1, town hall project. Tim has an update for us, as far as that contract goes with Oak Point from Lassell.
So we received the draft post contract from Oak Point right around the 1st of December. I sent that to legal counsel for review. Unfortunately, it didn't come out of legal review till yesterday, or actually the day before, no, Monday. I got it on Monday. There are some 47 different edits for legal review on that contract. So now it's gone back to, and it's a fairly substantial document. So it's gone back, I kicked it now back to Oak Point to their legal division, and they're gonna start working with that. Of the areas that I asked our lawyers to pay particular attention to on other places where I've had problems in municipal contracts is our right to appeals, our right to negotiate, problems that come up and arise both during the course of the project as well as after the project is finished. So they paid particular attention and added some extra language on our rights to appeal processes and so forth. So right now it's back at Oak Point. I anticipate hopefully in the next week or so coming back out of them. I'll send it back to legal for one final review. Once they bless it, it'll then get on the agenda for you folks, at which point I'll ask Oak Point to come and discuss and present the contract. Hopefully the first meeting in January. That's all I have for this. Questions, thoughts, ideas?
Thanks for the update.
You will have plenty of opportunity. I want to make sure that you have plenty of opportunity to read this.
Yeah.
And, you know, mark it up to ask the questions when Tyler gets here. And, you know, if there's any doubt in any of this, we kick the contract back to legal and continue with that. I want to make sure that in a project of $7.3 million, this contract, that we do it exactly, that we have it perfectly right, that there is no room for mistakes and issues. So I've been talking with North Berwick and some of the issues they had, and making sure they're getting some ideas from some other towns and stuff, what they have done. So we're moving forward, but it's work. It just takes time.
It might be worthwhile to touch base with York. I'm just thinking, just because they recently did their town hall, any learnings that they've had from that too. Any questions or comments from anybody?
Do the other towns that you reached out to, do they have contracts with Oak Point, or they just had projects that had designs?
Both.
Okay.
Some had contracts with Oak Point, and others just had town hall renovations and major projects that I want to make sure that I understand where they had issues.
Do we have any, like statements or like performance appraisals or any or recommendations from people that have worked with towns that have worked with Oak Point on projects?
That was, so unfortunately, that was done before you came on the council. That was the council, when the council interviewed the prospects for this project, that's where all that came in. And so they had to provide all their references, all the projects they had accomplished like this, working with historical buildings, other municipalities they worked with. So that was all vetted in the beginning of the project.
Okay. But more specific to like the questions that you're asking now about lessons learned and contracts and stuff like that, is that something that will have to review as well?
Is that,
Something that we'll have to review as well? Like,
my,
So I think the current, where we're at currently is I think the town of Berwick, we have kind of, this council has voted to move forward with Oak Point and Lassell.
Yep.
Correct. And we're now into the contract negotiation phase with them. And so this is what Tim is referencing, and this is a very large contract, and so we'll be getting it at some point to kind of hash through all the details of that, but unless we can't come to an agreement with Oak Point and Lassell,
yeah, so
we're continuing with
I
them.
think I'm not asking the question clearly. You're having discussions like, you know, lessons learned through the contract process. Is that all gonna be information that we're gonna be getting with the contract, so like when we're reviewing it, to kind of see the background work that's happened at this point, you know, for the next.
right, no, so that's stuff that I've already included. It'll be language changes in the contract for you already done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to go through page by page by page and edit stuff. So I've taken those things, and when I called legal, I said, here's a list of 5 things, pay attention to this, pay attention to our appeal process, pay attention to those things, you know, and so forth and so on. So I'm just giving them to legal to make sure that they're all inclusive into the contract before I present it to you. So when I present the package to you, it's gonna be a whole package. And you'll know that I've done my work, legal's done their work, Oak Point's done their piece. And then I want you to look at it and see if there's anything from your professional knowledge, your professional work knowledge, you guys have done all work with the contract. To look at it and see if there's anything that jumps out at you. And then we'll meet with Tyler and say, okay, we feel that we've come to a good agreement, this is covered, this is the next step, and then we'll move on. So I'm just, right now, when it comes to it, it'll be complete, hopefully.
Sorry for the confusion, thank you.
No
worries.
problem.
Any other questions for Tim on the town hall project? Okay, no action, right, Tim, we just
Right,
an update.
just information.
Okay, unfinished business number 2, new committee posting. So at our last meeting, I think it was our last meeting, we talked about forming committees for the downtown revitalization as well as the comprehensive plan, had asked the staff to kind of put together a charge or information that we could include in those applications, and I see you guys have pulled that together, thank you. And so if I understand correctly, where we're at, we just wanna make sure we are all good with the language included here, and then we can go ahead and put this out publicly, so we can start to, receive applications for these committees. Does anyone, I guess we can take a look first at the comprehensive plan committee, anyone on the council, have any questions or anything, and so Carlo, Tim, Jen, if there's any color you all would like to add? The comment one?
We did use both the comp plan and the downtown revitalization to get some of this verbiage. So Tyler and I looked over them and looked to the plans. So it would be most descriptive.
Awesome. Questions, anybody?
They both look good.
Yeah, that was exactly what we were looking for. Okay, so, I mean, I think it seems like there's consensus from the council that we're good with the language for the comp plan stuff. So the next step for the comp plan committee would basically just be to post this and start soliciting applications, right? Correct. Okay, do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay. I will go ahead and make a motion, that we make a motion that. Give me a second to get my thoughts together. Make a motion, to approve the language included in the comprehensive plan committee, charge. And go ahead and post that publicly to accept applications for the committee.
Second,
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
On these committees, are we going to have any sort of council, a counselor or 2 counselors also participate on these committees like we have in the past, or are these completely citizen committees?
No, because these are ad hoc committees to just do the operational work. And you're the final say on any approval of any work, so it would be redundant. You'd be doing 2 things, you know, you'd be sitting on a committee, then you have to come back and get the presentation from the committee. So this is where staff, DeCarlo, Paul, they go to these committee meetings, they do all the work, do all the operations, figure out all the answers, and then present to the council who has to make the final decision, yes or no. So this is really at the 10,000 foot level, you folks are at 30,000 foot level. This is down to that stuff. If you get bored, and you wanna do some work, let us know, we got stuff you can help with.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
The selection process, how does that work? And maybe it's not that.
Same way it has in the past for all the committees we've had, we'll bring them in front of us. We'll interview them, we'll ask them their reasons why, and then we as a council will pick them who they are. Normally, from what Mallory and I have seen in the past, not speaking for Mallory, but we don't really turn anybody away because we really don't get a room full of people. I'd love to see 50 people come in and choose 10, but if we get 10, we're gonna be really, really lucky.
Yeah, I think we'll bring everybody in and do interviews and stuff and make selections, just like they have.
I think that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions on the comp plan committee from anybody? Okay, any thoughts, or does everyone have similar thoughts about the downtown revitalization language? I do, I'm good with it. Anyone else?
We have a motion in a second, we have.
Oh, thank you, we did. Tyann was like, giving me a look like, you know, finish something. Thank you. We have a motion on the table to go ahead and move forward with the comprehensive plan committee language. Sorry about that. Let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Don? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you for the reminder. Okay. Now to the downtown revitalization, is everyone on the same page with the language for this one too? I'm comfortable with that. Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion to move forward with the language for the downtown revitalization committee and post that publicly, so we can solicit applications.
Second.
Thank you. Motion in a second. All those in favor say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. The only thing that I'm just curious what everyone thinks about is we're now putting out we're requesting applications for 2 different committees, and how do we want to do the interview process for 2 different committees? Do we want to do them like in the same night or together? Do we want to try to keep these separate?
I think we should probably see how many
How many
applications
total
we
we
get.
get? Okay, that's fair. How long are we gonna keep this open for? Did we agree to that? I don't.
I think, you know,
Until built?
yeah, 30, usually, you know, we'll see it 30 days, what
Okay.
it's like. If there's a big crowd coming in, we're getting a lot of applications, you'll have a bunch of them in your first meeting in January.
Okay,
If not, then we'll keep it moving till later on in the month.
okay, so we'll get some posted and then first meeting in January, we'll see where we're at.
We'll give you an update.
Great.
I do have one thought, you
Yeah.
just triggered it to me, is, are we gonna allow single individual to serve on both committees? We should probably know that before we get into this, because if we have one person that wants to serve on both committees, are we gonna allow it, or are we gonna say no?
I'm curious, so Carla, do you have any thoughts? Based on your experience, like I said, and what the committees are tasked with?
So for that, unfortunately, there's benefits and detriments to both of them, because the comprehensive plan committee is gonna be looking at everything overall. The downtown is concentrated in the downtown. It's the same conversation that you're having about, you know, do you want members of the council serving on it? There are benefits of, hey, you know, communication is flowing freely between the both parties, and you can get a lot of information back quickly. However, that's also taking up a spot that you can have a different voice, and maybe new ideas are percolating from that. As of right now, if you don't, you can make the decision a little bit later, and you can set a threshold. If we have, you know, double the amount of applications coming in, then we're not gonna allow people to serve on both. But if you are hurting for membership, because again, you have 5 voting members and 2 alternates, and you need to make a quorum, then maybe you think about relaxing that. So one safe way to go about it is to have a blanket of, as of right now, we're not allowing both, one person to be on both. However, if we are not getting the response that we were expecting, we can revisit that conversation a little bit later.
I say that we kind of revisit this conversation, sorry, once we get a sense of how many people we're talking about and like how much interest we have, because to Carla's point, like we might need to say, yeah, you can do both, or we might not need to. But it's a great question.
It was a great point, and my only theory was, depending on who it was, and this is my other side of my brain, is I could steer this plan however I wanted by being on both committees.
Yeah.
And that was my only thought, and look,
Well, the great thing about that is that they're an advisory ad hoc committee that will only be providing recommendations to you, the board, for you to do. So please feel free to take those recommendations. If you need more information, send it back to those boards for additional information, so you get the information that you need to make an informed decision.
I'm not gonna get anything by you. Thank you, Carlo.
So just to clarify, Madam Chair, just for application processing,
Mhm.
for now, I am allowed to accept applications from one individual for both committees.
Yeah, I
For the
mean,
time being.
yeah,
Until it's out.
Yeah, and we can figure it out at the end.
Correct, because I try to nip the conflict of interest first before it gets to you guys.
yeah, great question. Yeah, I think we can leave it open.
The other thing there is if somebody applies for both and we've got a bunch for one and not very many, then we, you know.
Yeah.
Push them to whichever one needs the.
Gently persuade.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we're all set to go ahead and get that language posted, and hope to see lots of applications come in for those two committees. I think. That takes care of unfinished business number 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now unfinished business number 3, comprehensive plan committee and next steps, I'm just reading this, sorry. So this agenda item is, we need to schedule a workshop in order to make a list of the top priorities for the newly created comprehensive plan committee that we spent some time discussing. We're in the process of gathering, so kind of in parallel to gathering applications, the council, we can start working on what we want their top priorities to be. So we need to schedule a workshop for us to do that. So it looks like suggestion would be to do our second meeting in January, to do a workshop at the beginning of our meeting. I'm assuming that suggestion is because maybe the first meeting of January is already looking a little heavy.
I think this is an
Oh, is that off? No, thank you.
That should be 14.
Yeah. Does that work for everybody to do 6 o'clock ahead of our January 28th meeting, second meeting in January? To hash through that?
Couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Do you intend to have it on an off night?
He's going to be the one. It depends how much time you think you need.
Yeah,
So this one was, depending on how much time, you think you'll need, we have all the action items and strategies have been put in a spreadsheet for you, and filters are already on it, so you can filter out everything that you want. There are a lot of actions and a lot of strategies. This is a 10-year plan though, so of course, there's going to be a lot of those. But each year you're supposed to pick 3 to 5 actions that you're going to prioritize, and you can put to those committees for them to concentrate on. This workshop is to get you familiar with those actions and with those strategies, so then you can make an informed decision of what you're going to charge the committees with.
In that case, you're obviously gonna be presenting a lot of this from what you sent to us, right?
Correct.
So now I'm gonna put you on the spot, because I know my answer to it, but how much time do you feel you're gonna need?
yeah.
I think you're gonna need more than a half an
Yeah,
hour.
to just kind of
I'd
relate.
like to do it on an off night to allow you to talk and talk us through it as long as you want.
Yeah, so this is one of those things that, you know, we can talk as long as we want. You're not gonna get it done in one night. This is also a thing that, you know, this is introduced to all the strategies, but it's gonna spark conversation. It always does. You'll start talking about, you know, well, we really should, for all of these immediate priorities, we really should be doing this. And then, you know, it's gonna turn into a thing. It's gonna be a great conversation, but I do think it's probably gonna be a little bit more.
In all fairness to you, the situation and the town, I think we should do it on an off night. And I'm available any Tuesday, you want to pick one Thursday.
21st would be the Tuesday before.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest the 21st. That is the Tuesday right after Martin Luther King Day, in case anybody's got travel plans or anything, but, does the 21st work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So we have the meeting with legal on the 7th, and then we'll have a council meeting the next Tuesday, and then we'll have another meeting the
We're
next
gonna be meeting every Tuesday
Tuesday.
in January.
Welcome to budget season.
And then we're gonna come in the budget season.
You'll be seeing us a
It's
lot.
still better than budget season from 8 years ago when we met 9 nights in a row.
No, we ain't doing that.
Bill, you look like you're in it.
Well, I don't know what would it be possible to have a shorter initial meeting just to kind of come up with the 3 and then we get a further,
Well,
we get a recommendation for the 3 or 4 things we want them to do, and then we get a bigger breakdown on the longer term plan? Or do we need to get a breakdown first?
I think what I understood from DeCarlo is you got this monster spreadsheet with a bunch of things super organized, and it's kind of like an exercise. The first thing is to kind of ground us on like the whole plan, like not in all the crazy weeds details, but like, so we kind of understand the bigger picture and then start figuring out, okay, for the next coming year, what are the 3 to 5 things? So I think we do kind of need the comp plan 101 kind of session.
And with 5 of us all having different thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's gonna bounce around and we're gonna smoke through time really, really fast. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't wanna go in unprepared for the amount of time and effort that's gone into creating this plan and what we've done. I really feel that we give it 100% per month, that's just, and I hate it.
Yeah.
But I think this would be definitely.
Yeah,
I agree.
the list is daunting.
Yeah.
It's very complicated.
Okay, so let's plan on the 21st. I'll make a motion in a second. But I also, because we're doing a workshop and just trying to be conscious of like people's time, I don't know if there's like, if it's better for people to meet earlier than our usual council night times, if that is somehow better for anybody. I can make that happen.
I'm good whenever. You guys tell me a time, I'll be here.
5:30 is about as early as I can.
Early to go, that's totally fine. So let's plan, okay, let's plan to meet at 5:30 on the 21st.
2 hours.
We'll plan an hour to 2 hours, like however long we need. I mean, I think we should like cap it just for our sanity's sake.
Nothing new after 9?
That's long, that's long.
First of all, yes, always, nothing new after 9. This is really good. Anything after an hour and a half, you guys aren't gonna be listening. Or if you're listening, it's not gonna stick into your head. So best practice is an hour is good. If you go inching towards an hour and a half, that's okay. No more than an hour and a half, especially for a workshop type thing.
Okay,
With
I'll
that-
make a motion.
With that, with that being said, I wanna make sure we're doing our due diligence, and if you guys can pinky swear that we're gonna be on track as soon as I walk in that door at 5:30, and I get 90 minutes of in the book, then I'm good with that. Otherwise, if we're gonna chit chat and have coffee and stuff, then I want 2 hours on this, right?
So let's do this. I agree with DeCarlo. I think hour and a half is like max attention span for one topic for a large group of people on sometimes some drier topics, right? So let's plan on the 21st. We'll plan to do 5:30 to 7 at the latest. And then if we need another one to continue, we can always do that. Is that fair, Doug?
Sure.
Could we maybe do it instead of, we do it downstairs instead of
Yeah.
just that way, if like, when we do workshops up here, I feel like we can't see, like, hey, Bill, how you doing, you know, like, so it'd just be, it's more, I don't wanna say intimate, cause that's creepy, but,
No, it's
you
fair.
know.
I think the only challenge that is like the recording, but I don't have any, we don't have any obligation to record those workshops.
No, we don't have, we don't.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a public workshop, people can
Right,
come
we
and
don't, we
listen
don't,
in, yeah.
so the public doesn't have say in the workshop.
Yeah.
So it's just between you and the staff talking. They can, the public can listen, but they have no rights to speak at a workshop, place to do your business, downstairs is fine.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion that we hold a workshop on Tuesday, January 21st at 5:30 PM on the first floor of Town Hall to discuss the comprehensive plan and the priorities for the coming year.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Put this on my calendar really quick. Before I forget. And that takes care of our new business. We don't need to, schedule a similar workshop for the downtown revitalization, it's just for comp plan.
Correct.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, moving on to new business grant acceptance from the fire department. So it sounds like the fire department has, been, issued, I guess, a grant. I'm gonna let you guys explain this, I'm not gonna handle it.
The fire department did go for a grant, $5,000 to purchase equipment to go on the new fire truck that is still just being built. So we would, put this money towards the equipment for that new fire truck, and the truck did come in right before the notification was made.
There is no match.
It is no match.
And move to accept the $5,000 donation to be used towards our new fire truck from the American Online Giving Foundation. Benevity, Jesus, I can't speak to that, I apologize, yeah,
Second.
that word.
Thank you, we have a motion and a second, any other discussion? Questions? All those in favor say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Moving on to registrar of voters appointment. So according to Maine State Law, under Title 21A, Section 101.2, it requires that, I'm just gonna read the language. The municipal officers of each municipality shall appoint in writing a qualified registrar of voters by January 1st of each odd numbered year. The registrar shall serve for 2 years until a successor is appointed and sworn. The municipal clerk may be appointed to serve as registrar, but the term of the clerk has no effect on the term of the registrar. If the clerk is not appointed to serve as registrar, the clerk must be appointed by the registrar to serve as a deputy registrar and has the same authority as the registrar to make determinations of voter eligibility and perform the duties of voter registration as provided in this title. In summary, this is a thing we have to do every 2 years, correct? Okay. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to vote to appoint Tyann Jambuso, our town clerk, as the registrar of voters for South Berwick. Can I get a second? Thanks. We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. And our next order of business, schedule interview with planning board applicant. So we received an application from one individual, Clay Curtis, to apply to the planning board. And so our typical course of action is we would then schedule an interview with that person at an upcoming meeting. Another kind of factor in this is that I think the email only came to Melissa and I as chair and vice chair, and I haven't sent it to the rest of the council yet, but we did receive an email from Mary Huzzy, who is currently an alternate, correct? And she is interested in the full-time board position for that as well. So, I think that what I will suggest is that we bring in Clay, do an interview, and then we can kind of discuss and figure out what we think is the best course of action in terms of Mary and Clay and kind of how I move forward with that. Does that sound good? What do you think?
The only clarification we needed before we responded to Mary.
Yep.
Where she is an alternate existing, she was wondering if she needed to fill out another application. She does not. Okay.
No, and I'll close the loop. I'll make sure to reply to Mary, with that information and make sure the rest of the council's in the loop on that. So I guess we will, I'll go ahead and make a motion to try to schedule an interview with Clay Curtis ahead of our, January 14th meeting, like at 6:15. Yeah, ideally, we could do the executive session right before the meeting. Can you be here at 6:15? Does that work for everybody? Okay, did I make a motion?
Yeah, not a full, one. You gotta, you said the time, you said no.
I'll make a motion to schedule an interview with Clay Curtis for the planning board at 6:15 PM on January 14th, 2025. And the third floor town hall. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Jeff?
I have just one question.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I can't remember, are the alternates, do they have a date,
A term.
a term?
Yeah, yeah.
And so does that mean that Mary has to resign to get moved up, or does that just move up? Is that logistically, I don't know how that works. And maybe it's not for now to talk about, I don't know.
Yeah.
To summarize, you would decide what you would want to do as a council, and if she is not, decided to stay as an alternate, or she moved up to a voting seat, she would then have to resign as the alternate and be reappointed with the new term as a full voting member.
Just a second. Oh, sorry, did you have anything else? This is to fill my spot on the planning board, I presume, which I think was gonna be up in April, so is this to fill until April and then do an extension, or is this like for the full 3 years from April?
So the way it works is that you have to fill the term, whether it be, if there's a month left, it sounds really redundant, but if there's a month left, you fill the void, they fill the term, and then they can apply for reappointment, which is an easy vote.
Okay.
And that's information that we'll make sure to have when we do the interview stuff, so everyone kind of knows you're applying for a term that's ending in 2 months, and we go through a process every June to reappoint people who are interested. We'll brief them on that.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor, say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Town manager's report, I'll turn it over to you guys.
The highway department have used approximately 300 tons of salt in the last 3 months, and they've been trimming trees and patching potholes. The Police department had 8 arrests, 1 accident, 75 traffic stops. Currently at this point, we are now officially full. The staffing is full. The 2 new positions that you approved have been filled. Thank you to the 2 new officers who have transferred from Sanford to us. And Sanford city manager is not talking to me anymore. I don't know why. So with that being said, Chief Ruger has appointed, Dave Arsenal as the new traffic enforcement officer. Dave will be working a unannounced schedule, and his sole job, other than to back up cruises on the road during the daytime, is he's gonna be working very specific identified traffic hours and very identified traffic places to do just traffic stops, investigate all traffic accidents, and back up the on-duty staff, because now we're full. So, moving forward, that'll be happening in January. Fire department had 20 calls in the last 2 weeks, 414 year to date. The cold weather's brought an increase in fire and carbon monoxide alarm activations, as well as carbon monoxide incidents, and most often been caused by faulty heating equipment. Code enforcement had 3 building permits, 1 plumbing permit, 18 inspections. They condemned 1 building, which was the dentist office over here on Highland. A car drove through it last week. An elderly lady accidentally pressed the gas pedal instead of the brake, and she moved 14 inches of bricks into the building, and
The one on Southburg Dental?
yes. So, the fire department responded, and then they called the code enforcement officer, health inspector. She went down, Jenny condemned the building because the structure was unsafe. So they had to pull the car out. They did get a structural engineer to come in the next day and look at it. And he's got a crew coming in to break the building up so they can reopen and get the people back in the building. So that's what happened there. 1 violation, 2 health inspector calls. And planning and economic development, planning board is now beginning to review the comprehensive plan actions assigned to them, begin working towards immediate action items. They're requesting a new submission deadline, which will be on your next agenda. It's gonna be 28 days prior to the planning board meeting for the first submission, and 14 days prior to the, Jenny to the other meeting following for any follow-up submission material. That's been approved by them. DeCal gave me a notice today on that, and I'll have that in the next meeting. So it's basically something DeCal's worked on to improve the planning board to improve delivery service to the citizens. Transfer station, we have now changed the main office around. You used to go in the main office, get the bags, that's now closed off to the public because there's cash in there. And they handling cash out of the cash drawer. And before, we had the assistant that was working the cash drawer all the time. There would not be people and employees in the office, and people would go into the office, stand around, and had access to the cash drawer. That being all said, we've changed that around. There's now a service window. The window on the side has now become a service window. And the office is a service office for employees and staff only. Customers come up to the service window and get everything they need right there at the service window. Much safer and better, and giving us an opportunity to renovate the inside of that office.
At the library, John Danforth, a professor from UNH Observatory, is actually speaking at the library tonight. He started at 6 o'clock. And he will be providing educational presentation on our place in the cosmos. There'll be talks on where we are in space and what position we are in the universe, wonders of the stars, planets, and other galaxies. Recreation Department, Powder House Hill, the electrical is finally all fixed and working well. The annual lift inspection will be taking place this Thursday. And Nikki at the Recreation Department has discounted tickets available for the Mariners game. That will be on New Year's Eve day. And also discounted tickets to the UNH hockey game that will happen in early February. The senior program had a cookie swap today. And tomorrow they are having lunch where Santa will be coming to visit. And assessing the townwide reevaluation is they're working on Belmarsh Road right now and surrounding streets. There is a small mix of residential, mostly commercial properties that are left. KRT will be finishing up those commercial properties soon, and they are working on data entry on all the new information that they have found. And they're also working on restructuring the neighborhood classifications as part of this reorganization as well. In the clerk's office, last week, Billy Walker started, and he's been a great addition to the team. Diane will actually be out on leave of absence starting on January 17th. Monique will be covering for her during her time away. Both Billy and Monique have been to motor vehicle training, which will ensure all services will continue in the clerk's office while Diane is out. In my area, I had 4 business meetings, 25 staff meetings. And as a reminder to the council, you have training on January 7th for legal training. Every time I think I'm done with FEMA and the storms for January and April, they ask for something else and they ask for something else. So we're getting some more information. Everything has now been completed and actually accepted with FEMA. Now I'm on to the state level with NEMA. And they are going through the documents, so we're at that level now. So 75% of our money has been allocated to come back to us. That's excellent news. And also the community resilience grant that DeCarlo and I worked on together for $75,000. The application was completed and submitted today. So that is going to be, assuming all goes well and we get approved, for $75,000 to put towards the town hall renovation, to put towards the windows specifically. And it's gonna be budget time. We're all gonna be busy, busy, busy.
And under admin, I have 14 business meetings and 68 staff meetings. CAPS Municipal Leaders Workshop, DeCarlo attended, and I attended, that was by Zoom. I met with the Tri-County Waste Group, and we continue to have Zoom meetings and negotiating, for our hauling contract. This is separate from the tipping contract. The update is we have contacted EcoMaine. All but 2 of the 13 towns are going with EcoMaine. EcoMaine will have a standard contract for us all available in January. And so it'll be showing up at one of your meetings. It's an ownership contract and they'll be, asking us to complete that by the end of January and get it back to them. And it'll take effect in July, so we're working on that. And we are joining hands with North Berwick and several other towns. We think we found a shipper for the hauling contract that is reasonable. We're hoping, it's a private company that wants to break into municipal contracts. So we're hoping that they gave us good prices, and ironically, without saying who they are, yet, unless we get a formal contract, they're out of Elliott, they're very close. So it very much benefits our travel. So. Been doing that, met with a citizen about the planning board issue, just to listen. Nothing I can really help with. The Carlos working on that. Obviously, several meetings with the attorney and everything from land use to legal lawsuit that we've had to several personnel issues that are boiled up. Attended the USS Washington plaque ceremony. Thank you for those who went. It was a nice ceremony. I think it was good. Jeff, sorry you couldn't attend, but it was a nice ceremony, and we look forward to doing more with them. Myself and some of the other staff participated in Home for the Holidays. It was a great success. We let them use the front lawn. Julia Gagnon sang. We did a tree lighting dedication. Santa visited, and people seemed to have a good time. And then, as the assistant town manager said, tomorrow we'll be visiting with the seniors at the luncheon and have a little something for them. So what we're gonna do for them is, you're gonna be an elf, I hear.
I am going to be an elf, yes.
You're good. So tomorrow, they're having a DJ who goes on at 11, and he'll play till about 12:15, and then from 12:15 till noon, he's gonna do a short rendition of the Polar Express. And if you remember how the Polar Express ends, the little boy gets the bell that he lost in his pocket, he can hear ringing, but he gives it to his dad. His dad says, "Oh, that's too bad, it's broken." And the boy says, "No, I can still hear the bell. I heard the bell for many years, right? The bell representing the spirit of Christmas." Well, Nikki went out and got 100 blue bells that say believe on them. And tomorrow, Santa, after they do the story, Santa's gonna give the believe bells out to the seniors and Merry Christmas, you know. Spirit of the season, so, we're very excited to be participating in the town, having the town do stuff for the holiday season with the seniors and the holidays. I think that's really important to show that we're part of the community. So Melissa, if you're not doing anything, 11:30 tomorrow, you wanna come jingle some bells, we're
Anybody wants?
happy to have you. We got pointed little shoes, out ears. And that's Madam Chair, that's all I have. Actually, no, I have one more, I'll pass you, sorry, so I developed a potential project list myself with at least 24 items, and I figured out 6 more before I came up here. Take a look at this isn't anything you have to do tonight, but I just want to give you, these are some of the projects I've decided that I have to work on, or that the staff has to work on, over the next, well, it'll be project 25, but some of these are gonna get completed early, and every day they're adding new ones, I'm adding new ones to the list. If there's anything on there that jumps out, or anything you wanna see, or something that you would like to have added, I'll revisit this in your meeting in January, and just give me some ideas if you have them. That's all I have with town manager.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you. Question? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't break in, Jen. With the assessment, you said it's almost done, correct?
Correct.
Is there a closeout meeting with them, or, what's that?
The KRT.
Yeah, like they come to us and say, hey, we're all done, hurrah, type of thing? Okay.
Yes, there'll be a closeout presentation when they're completed.
They'll be continuing to work and do data entry until at least the end of the summer.
Oh, really, yeah.
Yeah, the piece that's done is the evaluate actual boots on the
Physically.
ground stuff. Now the data entry has to go in, and that's could take up to another 9 months.
Okay, so that follow-up meeting will be after that data is done, not when they're physically done.
Right, okay, it's not, that meeting is until the project's completed.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor comments? Yeah.
Just happy holidays and, looking forward to 2025 and spending my January with the council instead.
January Tuesday. Melissa?
'Tis the season for identity theft, scamming, porch pirates. I just want everybody in town to be vigilant about, some crazy scams going on. But the great thing is that we have an excellent Detective Sergeant Mehoff on our, police staff that is very knowledgeable about, fraudulent activity. And he's a great resource, to just let you know how you can actually protect yourself better from, hackers or, that. So after that, Debbie Downer, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Bill?
In addition to just thanking everybody on the town staff and, for the holidays committee for, the awesome, program that they put together. Just a couple of things I want to commend Jen and your team on the audit report. That was, awesome. I know all the work that goes into those types of audits, and, the big difference between getting ready for an audit and being ready for one, and it's clear your team is ready for it. And you don't get that kind of a report, by scrambling at the end to put everything, all your ducks in a row. So, awesome job to you and your team.
Thank you.
And then also thanks to the Magnuson family for their generous donation of land to the Great Works Land Trust. And Merry Christmas.
Don?
Bill stole my thanking Jen and the team, so we'll leave it at that. Diane, question, when are dog licenses, when's the drop dead date?
Dog licensing period started October 15th. It runs until the expiration of December 31st, but you have a you have a month grace period. So as long as you have your licensed dog, a dog license by February 1st, you will not get late fee.
Excellent, thank you, so.
And there is a new online portal, and I want to emphasize with the public that it does stink Just to put it nicely, we are all trying to navigate it together, so I apologize.
All good but February first, and I just wanna wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Everyone said it, but, last meeting of 2024 has been a good year, thank you, and happy holidays, everybody, still have, and I'll just also, I was so mad at myself because I got confused about the date for Home for the Holidays and was not there, but I just heard that it was amazing and heard from so many people that, you know, Santa really was magical and everything about it was great, so, just wanna commend the staff and the community and the committee and everyone who's involved with that, I've heard wonderful things, and I'm really mad that I missed it, so. Before we adjourn, I'm just gonna make a motion for the council to go into a quick executive session. Ty, I'll send you the stuff afterward. And then, Jen, is there anything you need people to come in and sign between now and next meeting? Just because I feel like that always happens at the end of the year. If there is, let us know.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
on MRSA 406A personnel.
Motion to go into that, yes. Second? All those in favor, say aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Melissa? Aye. Bill?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Madam Chair, you can't motion in second, you're still motion.
Oh, sorry, I was just like.
She was seconding my motion.
Yeah, it was
Okay, I'm
a
sorry, I
sloppy
got
motion.
She
Yeah.
started it and then you. Okay,
No, she
so
deferred back to me.
first, second.
My motion and second.
And I'll just email you the ending stuff. Cool.
We're ending 24 just with a bang.
Cool.